Generation X. In general terms, those born between 1965 and 1980. Latchkey kids. Independent. Existentialism. Modern philosophy focusing on personal experience, human ability, and responsibility in an otherwise meaningless universe. We're the cause. This is the effect. We're the Gen Existentialists. Welcome in, everyone, to another edition of the Gen Existentialist podcast. My name is Scott.
And I'm Bunny.
And we're with you for the next 20 minutes or so talking about all manner of odd and curious things. And this, as we just started this episode, I made a goof up. I'm generally the one engineering the episodes, and I had forgotten to mute the prior tracks. So we got to the point where we came in, and I'm doing the intro, and there are other voices. I'm like, what's going on? You have that moment of sheer terror.
And I'm like you don't hear the other voices all the time? I mean, what's up with that?
It's like, is my schizophrenia coming through? Whoa. Is this real? And it's that moment of sheer terror. Like, everything was planned out. Everything was set. The system's in place, but something's gone wrong. And so you have that sheer moment of, oh, fuck. Oh. And then it's like, oh, okay, I know what happened. Yeah, we're just going to have to start again. So that's how this episode started. Let's hope we go upwards from here, right?
We've got nowhere to go but up.
So we will be spinning Mega Wheel the Magnificent. Mega Wheel has over 500 different topics that were dropped in at random, and that's how we figure out what we're going to talk about. But as Bunny is about to tell you, there are great ways for you to get involved in the show as well.
This is true. We're always looking for new topics and new questions. So if you have anything like that, go ahead and drop us a line either at the Mixcloud page where you found this podcast. You can get the Mixcloud app where you can listen to things on the go. This podcast is something good to listen to when you're on your way to work, on your way back from work, when you're working out, when you're working the turkey, whatever works. I don't know. You work it. You work it out.
How does one work the turkey?
Ask an adult. And you can also drop us a line at Morning Pizza Radio at proton.me. That's proton.me. And go ahead and address this to the Gen Existentialist podcast.
So if you have things that you want to hear us babble on about and talk about, by God, do it. And right now we're going to spin Mega Wheel the Magnificent and see what kind of topic we come up with. And we really need to start adding to it. I mean, it had over 500 at the beginning of this, but some of them are very similar, as we found out last episode.
That's what happens when you have 500 questions. They're variations on the same theme.
So, first topic up for us today. Do you, and this falls right in line with you, your livelihood, the things you do you prefer to go to the movies or watch movies at home?
I detest going to the movies.
What?
I do. I'd much rather watch
something.
The sticky
floors?
No.
The sticky seats.
It's the sticky people that are there watching it at the same time. Now, I don't like to pay the prices. I'm a skinflint when it comes to movie theaters. I think they're way overpriced. Even the matinees. I used to go to a lot of matinees, even as a teenager, to movies that nobody else wanted to see, basically. So I'd go by myself in the afternoon and sneak a ham sandwich in or something and have a lunch and a movie. And it was affordable back then. But now it's like, what, $8 to go to a matinee or something goofy like that? Oh, geez. I'll tell you how long it's been since I've been to the movies. But, yeah, I don't like the crowds. I don't like the noise. I hate the previews. I hate that they stuff commercials in the previews. The whole thing is just... It's a trial. The arcades that they have at movie theaters now suck. The food is way overpriced. I don't have... there was a Simpsons episode where Homer was going to take Marge to a candy convention that he got tickets for, and he wanted to do a hollowed-out wheelchair so that they could get more candy and push her around in a hollowed-out wheelchair. Well, one of the last movie matinees I went to, there was a gentleman in a wheelchair that came in, but he had an entire Boston Market meal with him. I could smell the gravy and the turkey or the roast beef or whatever he was eating, and he was just back there with a fork and a spoon or whatever, just piling it in while Godzilla was running around on the screen. Oh, geez.
Wow.
There he went. knocking down another building in Tokyo. So, yeah, I would much rather prefer to watch a movie at my home where I can just... I like to watch movies in bed. When they come up with a theater where you can lay and watch movies, let me know.
Well, they almost are now. One of my favorite things about modern, quote-unquote, movie-going is that you can buy your actual seat, like where you're going to sit, so you can make sure you're on an aisle, and you know your seat's going to be there, and they recline back, so if the movie's terrible, you can just take a nap, and, you'll be awakened when the movie's over, because everybody will be making noise and leaving. Not that that's ever happened to me, but you could. So I agree with you about the prices, and I think a lot of movies, at least over the past 10 years or so, aren't enough to make me want to go and see them on the quote-unquote big screen.
I agree.
If it's a Star Wars film, yeah, absolutely. We've got our wives in here in the studio with us today, so I'm going to ask my wife. I think the last movie that we went and saw at the theater was Barbie, right?
Yeah, it was Barbie. I like going to the movies, but only really just for the special effects. Otherwise, I'd rather stay home and watch movies.
Like the sound effects and things like that, or the visuals?
Usually the visual, because you need that big screen to really see some of those special effects in like the Marvel movies and the Star Wars movies.
Cool. What about you, Jeanne?
I cannot remember the last movie we saw together in a theater. I don't know if Bunny can. But
I think it was that last Star Wars flop.
Hey, now.
I remember seeing Rogue One in the theater, and yeah, that might have been it. But then we saw all the Star Wars. But the only reason I like movie theaters sometimes because of the immersive experience. Like there are certain movies that it's better if you're in the dark and there's a huge screen with all the sound around you and surround sound. That was like the Star Wars movies were like that for me, at least. But just a random run-of-the-mill movie, not so much.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. I think that if a film is designed to be immersive and to have huge visuals, it generally works better on a bigger screen. But at the same time, to watch them at home, like there have been a bunch of movies that we've kind of wanted to see at the theater, but it's been like, at this point, if a movie's released, in about 6 weeks, it's going to be available for streaming, and you could pay about the same price to quote unquote rent it as you would to go to the theater, and the drinks are cheaper and the popcorn's better, and you can have a cat sleeping on your lap, and you can take a pee break and not miss anything because you can pause the film. It's like, for most movies, there's no real point to go to the theater anymore, to me.
I'll tell you one of my favorite things to see at the movies. Now, I poop on the new Star Wars films because I don't really like them at all. But the older Star Wars films, when the fanfare comes on and
yes,
the text scrolls on the screen, that's something that you need to see at a theater. I mean, that boom, that's what you're there for. That's the chill. And when they stopped doing that, I was just livid about that. I was like, wow, what a way to just it's like you come to the party 2 hours too late, It's like, where's that big ba-ba, when you walk in. I just sort of, here's the movie. And I'm like, that's every movie. The thing that makes Star Wars what it is that huge fanfare in the crawl at the beginning.
I think
just
part of that
gets you all worked up.
Part of that, too, is us remembering it from our youth, too.
Sure.
Because I think at that age, that was part of what made it have such an impact is you're sitting in the theater and you're tiny and the screen's huge and that music just slams you along with the visual.
I'll tell you, one of the best movies I ever saw at the theater that I think everybody needs to see on the big screen, and you may get another chance. They keep doing these fanfare special events or whatever where they put out old movies. You need to see the Flash Gordon movie from 1980 with the Queen soundtrack on the big screen with all that booming, loud sounds and the soundtracks blaring. It is something to behold.
The only thing good about that movie is the soundtrack.
Heresy.
That
spanking time.
Flash Gordon the movie is horrifyingly bad.
It's supposed to be. That's the point.
No, it's not. Their goal was not to make a bad movie.
Of course it
They
was.
just did.
If they didn't want to make a bad movie, they would have hired actors that could actually act. I mean, Max von Sydow was like your big draw there, and I mean, he can act definitely, but you know,
Not based on that movie.
didn't you want to be Ming when you grew up?
No.
I did.
I wanted to be John Deacon when I grew up.
John Deacon.
He's the bass player in Queen.
I thought that was a character from the Flash movie that I missed.
No.
Okay, the Flash Gordon movie. I was like,
He-
which
he-
one's John Deacon?
He was one of the stars of the film because the 4 stars of the movie were the guys that made the soundtrack.
That was a great soundtrack.
Yeah. Yeah. Terrible movie, great soundtrack. That would be a question, to add to the wheel. Best movie soundtracks or
yeah.
favorite movie soundtrack. I'm going to go ahead and give the wheel another spin, and we'll see what we can come up with here. And we're slowing and slowing and slowing, and the wheel has given us... Oh, I can almost answer this for you. Or at least I can answer it for you.
Maybe we should answer each other's question for a change and see how much trouble that gets us in.
That would be interesting.
Yeah,
I don't know if it'll work on this.
We'll do an opposites episode sometime in the future.
What's the best birthday party you've ever had?
Oh wow, best birthday party I ever had. I've had quite a few. I haven't had really any since I've been an adult, or since I've been, I don't know, like, I think the last birthday party I really had was when I was 16. My mother got one of those giant subs from Subway, the thing that's like super long, and had all our friends over. I used to have a family room in the basement, and everybody'd come over and we'd blare music and goof around and eat subs and stuff. It was fun. I have to say, Chuck E. Cheese puts on a damn fine birthday party. Growing up as a young child, I used to go and do birthday parties at Chuck E. Cheese. My parents were very good about that. We had a mutual friend, Amy, who also had a birthday that was literally right next to mine. So sometimes me and Amy would celebrate birthdays together at Chuck E. Cheese because it was more economical for our parents. So, and there'd be a big group of guys and gals all running around playing video games, and our parents drinking pitchers of beer and trying to get through the intolerable stage show that was the Chuck E. Cheese stage show.
That was exactly where I was going to go, because when I think back to my youth of like birthday parties, I always think of your birthday parties and the stuff at like
Yikes.
Chuck E. Cheese and
All
stuff
right.
like that, because I never really had a party. We had family get-togethers where family came over, but I never had a party. And honestly, I never really wanted one. I mean, birthdays for me have always been like, yeah, it's cool. It's another year.
Yeah,
Yay,
I'll tell you,
move
Chuck E.
on.
Cheese, it was not about the pizza, and it wasn't about the cake, and it wasn't about the presents. It was about having all my friends there and playing video games. That was the big draw of Chuck E. Cheese. Now, we do have our wives in the studio still, so if we could pass this question over, I'm going to give it to my lovely wife, Jeanne. What was your favorite birthday party?
I was kind of like Scott, in which we didn't have parties really that often. Another only child here. But I do remember my 18th birthday, there was a surprise party that my parents and my boyfriend at the time were all in on. And it worked. I was completely surprised. He took me out to dinner. And I remember we went to Red Lobster because this was very fancy. This was like highfalutin at the time. And then he said, "All right, I'm going to put a blindfold on you." And I kind of said, "Okay." And he's like, "And we're going to go somewhere." So he did. And then he led me back into my own house, but he went a completely bizarre way, and led me in, and it was a surprise with a ton of friends and a bunch of people all there, and we had a movie and cake and everything, and I remember just being completely stunned that A, it happened, and B, they all pulled it off
Nice.
without me realizing it, so I still remember that.
Very nice. Very cool. Tracy, you got anything?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you how old I was. We were in Virginia, not Chicago, so no worries there. But I had a clown at my birthday party, and it was a lot of fun. I don't remember a whole lot, but then I found out later that the clown was drunk the entire time. So I think he had more fun than we did.
Well, if you're gonna have a clown at your birthday, it better be drunk. Because truly nobody likes clowns. That's my take on it. Very cool.
That was good.
So looking at the time, I think we've got time for another quick one. I'm going to give the wheel another spin. Now all I can picture is drunk clowns.
Can you imagine?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, if I were going to be a clown, I would be drunk.
Yeah, I'd be stoned, I think, if I were going to be a clown.
So we've spun the wheel, and the question is this. What's the most exciting adventure you've been on?
Wow. Exciting adventure. I'm going to pass that to you, sir.
I think they're not really adventures, but the first thing that pops into my head for me is going on stage, whether it's playing music or when I used to do poetry readings, because every stage is different. Every crowd is different. If you're playing to two people and a bartender, there's a different feel. If you're playing to a packed room, there's a different feel. And there's nothing any better or worse about either one of those. Actually, the most fun shows that I've done sometimes have been for the fewest people, because the people that are there because they want to be there and they want to hear you. And you do the show as if it's a packed house anyway. You never get down about it. If one person shows up, that's enough reason to go through and do the show the way you expect the show to be. But it's always exciting. It's always an adventure. I don't get nervous really anymore before I go on stage or like before we do this, even though I know a lot of people don't like having a mic in front of them, don't like extemporaneous speaking, things like that. I really do. I have for a while. But that would be my answer, is any kind of getting on stage, playing music, because it's always a ride. Even if you've done it a bunch, there's always something different about every show.
Okay, that's good. I was thinking, I've had a lot of adventures in my life, really. And that's why I needed a little time to grok that one and roll it through my brain here. Being on a large movie set is an adventure, especially if they're doing gunfire or explosions or any sort of hardcore pyrotechnics, special effects. Been there, done that. Just a couple of years ago, my wife and I traveled cross country.
Yeah.
And took backroads the whole way. And if we're talking about more recent adventures for me, that would be one that was just exceptional. I still think about it all the time.
What was your favorite part of it? Because I can totally see that, and I remember when you guys did that, the adventure aspect, but what made it exciting? What's the indelible mark that it left?
The indelible mark is being in the middle of Iowa. Taking back roads. There are state routes in Iowa that are just dirt roads. You could be on dirt roads for miles and miles and miles, and there's no one around. And I remember we just stopped the car on the road at one point and got out and just looked around, and there's just nothing around you. There's no cell signal. There's no people. It's just farms and dirt roads and no traffic, and just the fact that it felt like being a kid again, sort of, before the cell phone world, talking Gen X stuff here, where it was just me and Jeanne and there was no one else in the world. And that's the kind, we saw all sorts of great stuff while we were on the road, but my most favorite memories are that, and then we went to a wetlands preserve somewhere in southern Colorado, and we drove out into the wetlands, and we were the only people there, and it was just us and hundreds of birds and swamp and mountains all around us, and it was just magical. It was like we were the only people on the planet, and that's what I remember. So
yeah,
it's having private time in a world that's really crazy crowded as it is. So.
Private time in a place where there really isn't privacy.
Yeah.
Yeah, like where we live now, even though you've got kind of a country place, we're kind of outside in the county, and, we both of us, we all live kind of away from the general area, but we're still close enough to everything that within 10 minutes you can get wherever you need to go.
Yeah.
But on a dirt road in the middle of Iowa, if you better be prepared.
Yeah.
If you need something, that kind of thing. So, you guys have anything? Tracy?
So this is going to be kind of boring. It's a Colin Robinson story, maybe. I don't know. The second time I read The Left Hand of Darkness, I was there. I was in the snow with Jen Lee and Therum Harth, trudging for months, just trying to get to the end and surviving and talking. But yeah, I get into the story that much.
So you actually picture yourself in the book going through the same stuff?
I do. I'm one of them or with them, yeah.
And that's a sign of a good book, is if you can, like movies we were talking about before, if you can lose yourself in the entire process. Jeanne?
Well, the first thing I thought of was the trip that we took, also because we had a general idea of where we were going, in the sense of like, all right, here's where we're going to end up at the end of the day, and here's where we're starting out, and we're going to try and take these roads. But it was very, things could change at any moment, and we did do some improvising along the way, so there was a sense of we could do anything today if we wanted to.
Was there a lot of rerouting and recalculating as you went?
There was some, not a whole lot.
When we got to the Arkansas area, we were coming back the south direction, and we went down through Oklahoma and then shot into Arkansas. There were major floods at the time, and most of the roads we were trying to drive on were closed or impassable because of just rushing water. So that was the one faint time when we actually went on the expressway for maybe 30 miles.
Yeah, that's true. I forgot about that. We were just behind all the storms.
That place we drove through in Oklahoma, that was just completely destroyed by. There was a place we drove through on the way in through Oklahoma, and there were homes that were leveled. There were still people. There were still emergency vehicles lifting debris out of people's yards from tornadoes that went through just the day before.
Wow,
we were there.
But I thought about that trip, and then I also thought, I don't know if this counts as an adventure, but it was the most unplanned, exciting sort of thing, I think, and it was my semester abroad.
I don't think I ever knew that you spent a semester abroad.
I did. I was 21. It was my junior year, and I was in France for a semester. And it turned out that this was way back in the day where you didn't have the internets and you didn't have, like phone calls were inordinately expensive. So I left like I knew some of the people. This was through college, so obviously I knew some people and college friends, but not good friends. And so my family, my friends, everybody left them behind, and that was it. Like, you did not call, they would send letters, and it would take a week to get there. So it was kind of this big jump into the unknown, because we went and lived with a family. I got a roommate who I did not know beforehand. It was a country where obviously you're supposed to speak the language and learn just be immersed in it. And it ended up being fantastic and a really great experience. I mean, there were highs and lows, but overall it was kind of jumping in the deep end and having to see who you were, without support, kind of.
Are you still in touch with anybody that you met on that adventure?
I don't think so. I'd have to think about it. But I mean, when Facebook first came up and we all signed up on Facebook to find, what happened to everybody, I did talk to a few people who had gone through, and everyone was doing well. Some people were teachers. I was doing my own thing, but it was an adventure.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you, Tracy and Jeanne, for adding in there and helping us out. My name is Scott.
I'm Bunny.
And we appreciate you joining us. Check out the Morning Pizza Radio Collective Facebook page for more information on the show. And we'll catch you next time. Have a good one.